What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to give you an overview of what is happening with Lucid, go over some of the data points, what shorts are doing, as well where I see things going from here. Before I get into any of that, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And with that, let's get right to it. So Lucid is down 9.5%. There's around 4 minutes left in the trading day. So of course, power hour hasn't really worked out really in Lucid's favor, despite the new 52-week and all-time low of around $4.51, a massive amount of volume. So 52.81 million shares being traded, 33 is the average. At the time of doing this video, there has been no SEC filings, no press releases for today, although a lot of people are still trying to digest the Q3 numbers, so the production and delivery numbers that did come out and what it might entail. And so I do see a lot of people starting to bring up as far as the ratios, because based on the Q3 numbers that they did provide, we can kind of look at the PS ratio just to see how, I guess, appropriately valued Lucid is. So currently it is at 15.1, the future is 9.6. So just to put that in comparison, Rivian is right now around, I think it is 6.5. Polestar, which does produce a lot more vehicles than Lucid, is at around 2. Tesla is at around 3. So in comparison, this is where a lot of people are starting to say that Lucid is massively overvalued. So this is why there is a pretty significant pullback, and especially if you do couple that with analyst ratings. So there was one new one today, John Murphy, who does have a 54% success rating and is from Bank of America. And Bank of America has always really liked Lucid behind the scenes, but they do have an $8 price target. And it looks like yesterday CFRA, so Garrett Nelson, who does have a 59% success rating, did downgrade it, a sell rating and a $4 price target. So most likely in the next little bit, you are going to see a lot more analysts giving ratings, and probably a lot of them are waiting for the actual Tesla earnings to come out, because if Tesla does bring up some issues about maybe the foreseeable future, that is going to once again trickle down to Lucid, as it typically does. But when it comes down to it, these were kind of floating around, so some aerial views of the AMP1 facility, so pretty good stuff when it comes down to that. So still a lot of moving parts. So even though the price is going down, once again, you have to realize that there is a difference between what happens operationally and the price of the stock. So just keep in mind, even though it is in the 450s, obviously they are still going to hopefully at least push as hard as they can operationally. One thing that I wanted to bring up, maybe I'll save it for another day, but I've brought up the fact that in the past, if a stock does trade below $5 for 10 consecutive days, this is where a lot of institutions might be forced to sell it. So I'll elaborate on that in a later video, but this is the latest round of 13Fs that did come down the pipeline. Still rather small fish in comparison to the BlackRock, Vanguards, and things like that. But based on this, a lot of institutions seem to kind of be mixed. So you don't see any big kind of moving things going on right here. You do see the Louisiana State Employees Retirement System. They increased roughly around 56%. That was all done during Q3, so just be aware of that. But even that one institution right here, that technically would be in danger of below that $5 mark. So again, that'll kind of cycle back to that. But when it comes down to options, $1.66 million in calls being purchased versus 8.9 million in puts. So very much negative. People are assuming that it is going to continue to trend down, especially based on the technicals. It just held virtually no support levels whatsoever today. And based on this, looking at the open interest for the call options, so this shows all the strike prices, expiry dates, and all of that fun jazz. It does look like people are anticipating for it to be roughly around 550 to 6, so no real difference from yesterday. But when it comes down to the puts, it is anticipating for people to, I guess, below or sub $4. So kind of extreme. And one thing to note though, a lot of market makers did add a lot more chains or strike prices. So you do see 0.5, $1, $1.50, $2. So once again, that's not really a good indication of at least the foreseeable future, that a lot of market makers do anticipate it possibly even getting close to that. So once again, that is something to keep in mind. These are some of the transactions that did occur on the secondary market over $100,000. So like I said, especially based on the volume that I mentioned at the very beginning, a lot of money is looking at Lucid at least. Some is buying, some is selling, so very much mixed today. But still, I think the bigger players in Lucid are waiting for confirmation or just some reason on those kind of lackluster Q3 numbers. Because in case you missed it, I'm sure you all are aware of it, but they did produce roughly around 1,550 vehicles in Q3 and delivered 1,400. And yes, I've already brought up in the Q4 earnings 2022 that they did signal that there was going to be kind of rolling blackouts or shutdowns just as they kind of move to phase 2. So the production, yeah, maybe that could be a valid excuse potentially, but Lucid has zero excuse whatsoever for these deliveries, because even if the AMP1 facility did have rolling blackouts, that does not stop them from delivering vehicles. And based on this, like they should have roughly around 3,000, maybe more vehicles that's just been compounding every single quarter since they started to obviously produce vehicles that doesn't have any owner. So they have a very big surplus of just vehicles. They need to deal with that massively, like ASAP. And when it comes down to this quarterly earnings, like this is critical. Peter and Sherry need to answer things crystal clear. They cannot give any BS answers as what they typically do. So very important for this upcoming earnings to put forth all the available questions. So starting on October the 24th, retail investors can pose questions to management. So that is a very key thing. Once again, in the past, actually to be fully honest, last quarterly earnings, that was probably the best questions ever asked. Prior to that, like it was just stupid questions like what did you eat for breakfast, that kind of crap. So going forward, definitely this is our opportunity to get the right questions asked. And I think it's kind of fair to assume at this stage just to drop that question, are you dealing or working with Apple in the future? I think maybe this quarter, let's just sit tight on that and not ask that question. Let's worry more about production and what they plan on rectifying clearly this big issue. But still, moving on from that and my rant, I'll go over what shorts are doing. So the market just closed a couple of minutes ago as well, but short score is currently 87, utilization is 95.33, and shorts are actually returning 381,000 shares, 25.22% of the free float is being shorted, and 221.75 million shares overall are being shorted. And cost to borrow average is significantly lower than yesterday, so 11.24 is the average. And through Interactive Broker, short availability does indicate that there's around 1.4 million shares available to be shorted. So technically, even though we did go down a pretty significant amount today, the way I do analyze this information, for the shorts to actually return on this much of a red day kind of shows that they feel that's an overreaction. So once again, you kind of have that in the mix as well. On a side note, just going back over here, if you are looking for a lot of good compiled information such as analyst ratings and analyst forecasts for the upcoming earnings, take a look at Interactive Brokers. All of this can be completely free. Click on the link in the description below and also the comments. But the question what everyone wants to ask or wants to know essentially is, where is Lucid going? So hypothetically, with it at $4.54, it is in fact below this S3 looking at the 4 hour. So that is crazy. So Lucid is getting completely slammed. Arguably could be a little bit too much, but still $4.56 is going to be that kind of pivot point that you want to watch for going into tomorrow. And once again, I think obviously tomorrow will dictate or be dictated by whatever does happen to Tesla, good, bad, or the ugly. So these are some of the actual resistance points above that. So $4.79, $4.94, and so forth. But ultimately, when it comes down to technicals, usually what is done by this and how it's always interpreted is it uses past data to try and to forecast what might be coming in the future. And clearly, with this being a new 52-week and all-time low, most likely it is just going to be the hold numbers that's going to be the next strong support levels. So obviously, maybe $4.25, $4, and kind of the quarter marks when it comes to that. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Give yourself a shout out. Did you buy today or did you sell? What is your viewpoint on that? And when it comes down to the earnings, do you think I'm just bringing this up or kind of focusing too much on this? Or do you think it's like, what's your viewpoint? Are you concerned about this or not? Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And even though Lucid goes up, down, sideways, all over the place, take advantage of this promo. It's only been extended up until October the 20th. Just sign up for an account with Moo, throw $100 at it, and you get 5 free stocks. Each stock is valued up to $2,000. So take advantage of that. Link in the description below and also the comments. And with that said, I appreciate all of you watching, and let's eventually make a lot of money whenever the hell that might be with Lucid.